round of HGH testing for the NFL players. And I know there's a lot of people, and I'm still in that category mostly, that are very suspect and very suspicious of HGH testing. Number one, its validity. Number two, its scientific value, because there's different tests. Some tests worse than, I know a few years ago, they literally could only tell if you took a shot a few hours before the test. That was the thoughts about this new testing. That's in the last 18 months, there's been some breakthroughs in HGH testing, and a lot of it has been seen on the MMA level. If you follow UFC, and there's a few boxers too, but there's been several big name MMA guys, especially in this year, the calendar year 2014, that have been caught with some HGH tests. Now, a couple of them, the thoughts were that they mistimed their usage and they took a shot within a few hours of their test and so on and so forth. But the latest one, which was Kung Lee from the UFC, his testing is one of the first examples of somebody who knew his test was coming. It was scheduled in advance, and he still failed it for HGH, which now opens up the questioning that maybe, just maybe, this testing is slowly starting to become more effective and able to detect use longer. If that's the case, then it will become effective. If they can continue to do that. And now if you can tell, because taking a game day shot doesn't help you. Unlike testosterone, like if you took a shot of testosterone, it will literally make you angrier and more aggressive in about an hour. If you took a shot of HGH, it's not the same thing at all. It does not have immediate benefits like that. So not that anybody would just, well, maybe they would just inject testosterone before a game, but I'd be afraid my heart would explode. But regardless, HGH doesn't work that way. So nobody's taking the test taking a shot right before the game. So you're never going to catch anybody if that's the case. But if they can even get those tests where you can detect usage within a 6-7 day window, now all of a sudden a weekly test, it becomes impossible for these guys to cheat the system. So, that's something to think about. But this was one of the first cases of Kung Lee where a guy had a scheduled drug test, knew when it was coming, and failed for HGH, which shows that they just may be getting ahead of the testing a little bit. I'm still very, very, very suspect because, as I said, I know people personally who have passed tests, who have been chock full of things that they shouldn't have, different fighters in different organizations. So from firsthand knowledge, I know how effective and how not effective a lot of that stuff is. But I am interested to see. And if the NFL is serious, then more power to them. But I think if they're serious, you'll start seeing players. And that's what I'm waiting to see. The first couple of stories that we hear of an NFL player failing for HGH. Because if we go, I'm going to tell you this now. I know that you guys know that I think 70% of these guys are on HGH. But even if you throw my percentages out the window, I'm telling you that you don't need my word to let you know that if nobody fails for HGH between now and the end of the season, that is a total sham. That is 100% sham. You guys see every week, guys are getting nailed for stuff. It might be a guy you never heard of, but just about every week or two, somebody's getting popped for steroids or Adderall or whatever. We see it every week during the season. Somebody's been suspended for something. There's no way possible that people don't get nailed. And if people don't get nailed, then this test is worthless. And now if at the end of the season, we got 10, 12 guys who have been popped, but they're all non-star players, the system is still suspect. But if you end up with a couple of dirty pops here, though, then maybe there'll be something to talk about. Be interesting to see what happens the first guy who gets caught here in the HGH testing. It's a battle to not get caught. And the whole idea is not to avoid getting caught. The whole idea is to not use it and to clean up the game. And that'll be something to watch as this goes forward. But I don't know if a lot of people noticed that yesterday it began officially. They are allowed to collect up to a teaspoon of blood from each player in order to conduct this testing. So it's the beginning, ground zero perhaps, of something here. And again, still suspect about the validity of things, but it has begun. So we'll see who's the first one to get popped. I mean, it was the same thing with baseball, when they started testing. Once people started getting popped, you went, okay, well, at least there's something to it. But the HGH is a different level too, because that's something, and I'm not going to get technical with the steroid stuff here, but that's the big thing now is instead of using anabolic steroids that are detectable, they fill you up with water. It's so easy to look at a guy and know when he's on the juice. Instead, you use a small dosage of testosterone, which is an illegal steroid that your body already produces. So as long as you use a small level, you won't trigger a test, and then you combine that with human growth hormone. When the two work together, it's a synergy that just makes it a super companion drug to each other. When you add that little boost of testosterone to the HGH, it becomes stronger than almost any anabolic steroid combo that you can put together. And it's all muscle mass, all fat loss, no water gain, no puffiness. You get the ripped look, you get the chiseled abs, you get that look, that new. You wonder why all the actors, all of them in their 40s, all look like that. They all take off their shirt. They got washboard abs. Yeah, they work out. They also take the fountain of youth. It's called human growth hormone with a little dab of testosterone on the side. That's the new thing that the baseball players are using too. All of them. So once this test, if it really starts nailing guys, then that'll affect things because HGH quickly became the steroid user's new thing to use that can't be detected. And until you can eliminate those, you don't truly have clean testing in any of these sports. No matter what, all you have is people not smart enough to do the math or to know their body chemistry and know what they can use and when they can use it. And it's basically it's an arithmetic test in these sports. If you're smart enough, you can use anything and get away with it. This would cut a lot of that window out. So started this week, first week, historic HGH testing for the NFL players. Other thing I wanted to talk about, Eric Hosmer, we talked about that earlier with Jeff Gorman, but my final story of the day here before we roll out, you know what, before I get into that, let me, hi Bruce, I was wondering how long it was going to take Bruce in the chat room to say Miguel Cabrera's name. I went on for about 10 minutes talking about steroids. It took him that whole time, but I knew it was coming. I knew Miggy Cabrera's name was coming out of there somewhere. And you're absolutely right, Bruce. Some of these guys are going to be scared and stop using it, and you'll notice there too. I mean, there's the other way to catch a steroid user. There's two ways to know, and I know you can't prove this in a court of law, and I know people can't use this in their Hall of Fame reasoning and all of that, but plain and simple, when the testing comes down, you look for two groups of people. All the guys who got caught, obviously, and then you look for all the guys whose numbers went down, who started serving major time on the disabled list for the next few years, because exactly what Bruce said there, your body breaks down, you start to lose the connecting it depends on what you're using. If you're getting too muscular, then the connecting tissue between the ligaments and stuff breaks down. It all depends on the sport, different things, what you're taking as far as what's going to break down. But exactly, it's why I always had my suspicions about Travis Hafner, because I know the circles that he runs in, and I know some of the guys that he hangs with, and some of them are in the professional wrestling industry, and they're big steroid users. And I'm just saying, after Travis Hafner, after steroid testing came in, his numbers went down, his body started breaking down in all the steroid ways. And I feel bad because I'm saying something that I can't prove. So I'm not going to sit here and tell you that Travis Hafner was or wasn't on steroids. But what I will tell you is that he ran in circles of groups of people that did know the benefits of steroid use. And after steroid testing came into place, his body showed a lot of the after effects of people that get off of steroids. So my putting one and one together tells me that he may have been using some performance enhancing substances. You know, again, I can't say that for proof. But that's what it is. And that's how I figure out to myself who was clean and who wasn't. I go look at guys who dropped off the cliff after steroid testing came in, and you can see it. I mean, there's guys who literally, I mean, think about it too. When the first round of drug testing came in, well, who was it for the one for Baltimore that literally went from hitting 50 he hit like 10 home runs a year, Then he hits 50 or 60 or something, and then goes back to hitting 5 or 10 home runs a year again. Was it Brady Anderson? Was that who it was that had just that exploding season back when the steroids were really kicking? And then he went all the way back down to earth after that. But yeah, Bruce, and I'm with you. So that's the other place that you can see is if the players, and you'll notice that quick. You know when you'll notice that? The first time somebody gets caught. But maybe the second time. Because the first time they'll be like, oh, well, that was a fluke. Once one or two guys get caught, whispers start going around. Now, of course, the other thing is what comes next. Because as long as there's drug tests to cheat, there will always be cheaters looking to get an edge. So now what comes next after HGH? But HGH was so scientifically beyond testing that once science catches up to that, I'll be interested to see where performance-enhancing drugs go next, man, because although, I mean, you'd be amazed if you knew where they went now, from shooting injectables to just chewing on a gummy bear, man, and it's as simple as that. But we'll see who gets ahead of the testing and what the testing starts to pull out there. I saw a couple of you guys. We were going to talk with Dr. Football, and tomorrow I'll get into this too, a little bit more. We'll see what the latest injury report is with the Browns. But looking at things, I know I'm seeing Joe Hayden perhaps banged up. I know that there may be a Justin Gilbert sighting. Did you guys notice he didn't play? I mean, just no reps at all. No rep. Quan Williams got all of his reps the other day. We didn't even talk about it yesterday. I mean, it's one thing to limit it. I mean, it went from he played most of the game the first week to some of the game to a little bit of the game to none of the game. Obviously, there's reasons for that. He's not where anybody expected him to be at this point. I get the catching up. I mean, Joe Hayden, had a slow start to his career, and don't even get started. I'm not arguing about the lockdown thing right now. I don't care about that. I'm just saying, taking some time to develop, that doesn't bother me. What bothers me is not getting on the field. Okay, I know people will say, well, Manziel, that's different. That's a quarterback, and Hoyer and all that other stuff. But, man, Gilbert's not on the field. That they're going undrafted guys over him. That's making you wonder, what is he doing that's making the coaching staff think he's regressing instead of progressing? But he may get thrown into the fire here this week. And I didn't like the Buster Screen. I know Pettin talked about that. He said, well, Buster Screen, we played him outside, and I don't like Buster Screen playing outside. And Buster Screen got burnt like toast the other day on that touchdown. But it is what it is, man. I got you. I'm with you on Gilbert, but not seeing the field at all. And I know we got a coaching staff that leans towards veterans over rookies, and I like that for the most part. I do. I like that. And I think we need more of that here in Cleveland. I like what we've seen with that part of it. But Justin Gilbert's, you would think, being a top 10 pick, it's one thing to say, okay, he's only going to play 40 reps a game or whatever. It's another thing not to be making the field at all. So he may get a chance to play, though, with the injury here. We'll have more about that tomorrow. We'll see what the latest is. We'll get the Browns injury report tonight and see who's getting ready. And then, of course, tomorrow is the key Wednesday. A lot of who's going to play will be determined by who practices there. So we'll get the latest on that. Same, I saw Pierre Desir mentioned in there. Still waiting to see him. He's another one. They've taken their time. He's getting him healthy, getting him ready to contribute too. Quan Williams, I mentioned him too. I mean, it shows they're not afraid to put the guys the undrafted guys, the guys you never heard of out there over the guys with the pedigree. Now, I will say that's one thing I will say. Not just, I mean, we see it, the marquee spot is Manziel and Hoyer, but I mean, even there, you got a high pedigree draft pick and an undrafted free agent. But if Pettin thinks that the undrafted guy is going to help him win the game, he'll go with it. Not every coach will do that. I mean, that's not saying he's the greatest. I'm just saying not every coach will do that. And Mike Pettin could care less about where you were picked in the draft. He's simply going by what he thinks is the best. But it's got to be alarming that Gilbert's got no reps the other day. I mean, yeah, you could say Joe Hayden didn't start until, what was it, week 6, week 8, something like that. But not starting and not playing are two different things. I'm not going to go as far as Bruce. I'm not going to say he's a bust now. How can you call anybody that early? But he's not a boom either. And I'm not talking about that idiot Chucky Booms either. But he's that could be an insult.